right. Welcome everyone to the Self-Care Summit. My name is Aditi. Today we are talking about battling mental health for people of color. There's a lot of issues that people don't know about, and I think this conversation will be great to spotlight some things that may have been dismissed or not even known about. Sometimes having that knowledge and having that awareness can be so profound and healing for us as a collective. So thank you so much for being here with us live. In order for you to get the replay sent to you, make sure to sign up for the summit at aditicreative.com/summit. I'm so excited to connect with all of you today. We have a lineup of some wonderful panelists who are going to be sharing their stories and their journeys with mental health, as well as tools to help you navigate your journey as well. All right, so I'm about to bring the panelists on. Let's meet them. Hi, everyone. Hey there. Awesome. So, how we're going to start today is we are going to start with hearing everybody's stories. So, I want to invite everybody on the panel here to share a little bit of your story with mental health, your connection to mental health, and your experience, and what brings you to the panel today. I'm going to start us off with Wendy, and then after that, you guys can just go ahead and unmute yourself and speak.
Hello, everyone. My name is Wendy Coop, and I am a certified personal trainer and integrative nutrition health coach. And I have been receiving mental health services since before I got out of the Navy in 2004 as a result of trauma that I experienced while completing my military service. So, the majority of my mental health experience has been with either military professionals or with the professionals at the Veterans Administration with their medical facilities. I also have post traumatic stress disorder, and that is the main focus of my therapy at this point. And it's been a ride. I'll just say it's been a ride. You can find out more about me at wendycoop.com.
I'll go next. I'm Dr. Amriti Chaudhary. I am a life and weight loss coach for South Asian women professionals. I basically got into this because I am also a physician in the UK. And as a physician, I was always exposed to a lot of mental health. Like I'm a family practitioner. So I was practicing in an area that was quite high in the South Asian population and people of color, because I'm in London and it's quite a multicultural population. And so I've had kind of experience with mental health from both sides. So as a practitioner and now as a coach as well, we deal with, even though I'm doing mainly life and weight loss coaching, especially for South Asian women, a lot of it is actually managing the mind. And a lot of these kind of underlying issues are because of the taboo in this culture. So the taboo of kind of talking about mental health in South Asian professionals. So that's mainly what I focus on. Now, my story is I was always overweight. Like I'd always struggled with my weight, and so that's the reason why I kind of got into what I do. And I was able to lose 42 kilograms, so 92 pounds, with coaching and with managing my mind after trying every other diet under the sun. And so I realized that even after trying everything, when you're actually managing your mind, when you're actually using these techniques to kind of, live your life on a daily basis and actually live your life intentionally, be accepting of your mental health, because I also suffer from anxiety. I've never had any therapy or anything like that, but I do wake up with anxiety every morning. And before I used to kind of really judge myself and think, why are you anxious? You've got it all. You've got you're married, you've got kids, you've got a nice house, you've got a job, all of this. Why are you anxious? What are you anxious about? And I used to really judge myself. And now I'm kind of like, well, this is normal. So I'm trying to one of my missions is to try and normalize mental health in this culture. So yeah, so you can find me at www.amriticoaching.com or on Instagram and Facebook.
Hi, I am Shakti Sharma. I am a transformational coach. I help mainly women to create whatever reality that they desire. And I'm also an intuitive, an energy healer, meditation teacher. I own 2 yoga studios in the Bay Area. So I really try to bring in that holistic yoga, mindfulness background in my work. Just thinking of depression, and the mental health, it is such a common theme. And my first experience with mental health, when my eyes sort of opened up to, well, wow, like, wow, this is there, like this matters. This happened about 10, 12, 15 years ago. I went through my first heartbreak at that time, and it was just so hard. I found myself feeling anxious, and I had heart palpitations, and there's this like funk I found myself in, where I used to work very hard in corporate at that time. And on the weekends, I would sleep for like 15 hours straight. Like I was so exhausted physically and mentally drained and emotionally in a funk where I don't know what to feel anymore. I personally had background of um, kind of being in a freeze when emotions come up and not knowing what am I supposed to do. So this was me in my past life. Thankfully, my depression at that point was situational. It came up as a situation, and once I was able to reconcile things within myself, it also faded away pretty quickly. But I remember watching and witnessing a friend go through their bipolar journey. It was eye opening for me, and that was the first time I realized how much impact mental health can have on us and affect our day-to-day life, where we don't know if we, going to job, kind of going to that 9 to 5 is such a struggle. To get out of the bed is such a struggle some days. um, so my own experience really allows me to develop that empathy and compassion. And now it's a different story, having the right tools, knowing what needs to be done when these episodes come. It really helps me navigate through some of the tough days. And I'm so happy and glad to be here. If anybody is interested, you can find me at awakenshakti.net. It's not .com, it's .net. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Charleston Gaines, and I'm glad to be here. Just mental health is very important to me. I spent 20 years in the military. I'm a disabled vet. I'm also a PhD candidate. I've been studying psychology for a long time. And what I do as a speaker and coach is I empower people to love themselves and feel whole again. And I do that using a combination of emotional intelligence as well as neuroscience and positive psychology, really teaching the skills to allow people to prevent themselves from getting into certain situations where they are overwhelmed with anxiety, depression, or other mental health issues. And the reason that's my focus is because through all of the study of psychology, as well as all of my time in the military, I've seen so many programs that are reactionary. In my 20 years of military service, if I think about the number of people I know that died by suicide, every time I come up with those names, I always forget a name or two because that's how many there were. And the same goes with individuals who experienced sexual assault or bullying or some other kind of trauma where the programs are reactionary. And the truth is, you need to be reactionary, right? People need help. They need support to get over the trauma. They need support to get over whatever they've experienced. But I really wanted to move into the prevention aspect of it. And that starts with emotional intelligence. Specifically, with Amruti talking about her weight loss journey and knowing she tried these different things and they weren't working. So that's that self-awareness. So then she tried something else and lost 92. Like, I'm never gonna forget 92 pounds. That's a great accomplishment. I've lost 4 in the last month, but anyway. And so and so you're able to do that with self-awareness, and that's amazing. How do we teach people to do that with their mental health? And the answer from the research and the work that I've done is that it starts with emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence doesn't cure anything, it helps provide the foundation for your journey. And so that's why I'm here. That's why I do what I do. I don't want to add any names to the list of people I know that have died by suicide. And if you want to connect with me and find me on my website is charlestongaines.com. I'm also on Instagram and LinkedIn and Facebook. And I just love to hear from you, see if I can help you love yourself and feel whole again.
Awesome. Thank you much. Thank you so much for everyone sharing your stories. So, so powerful. I love doing stories in the beginning because I feel like it just connects us to each other and for everyone to everyone's stories right away. And everyone's story is so powerful. For me, growing up in America as a first generation Indian American, I was born in New York, and my parents came here when they were working, and my mom came here when she got married to my dad. So I always struggled with that identity crisis with being Indian at home and like speaking a different language and then going to school and being American. And like it was just very confusing for me. And I didn't understand where I belonged. I definitely got made fun of for my skin color, for being Indian, for like, different characteristics or things. Like, for example, even there would be jokes about like, Indian people smelling like curry. And so a lot of that really affected my confidence levels, my self esteem. I didn't understand who I was, what I wanted to be. I wanted to hide parts of myself because I was getting made fun of or bullied in certain areas. And I feel like there was always this emphasis on health in terms of eating right and exercising, but nothing else. And I never knew that mental health can actually affect you so much. And when I started gaining weight in high school, it literally happened around a time where I was getting bullied at the highest level I had gotten bullied before. And so I didn't know how to deal with it. And over time, my body ended up holding on to weight as a protection mechanism. And I didn't know how to process the pain I was in. And often also in the Indian culture, there was just a lot of comparison between, kids and the grades they're getting, the schools they're getting into, the pressure for SATs. I was never that smart Indian kid. So I really struggled with that whole stereotype because I feel like my statistics teachers just expected me to get it and I didn't. And I felt stupid. I felt dumb. And it really made me feel defeated in school. And even after that in work, it just made me shrink and feel small. It wasn't until I really found this healing work. And actually, stress is really what catapulted it for me because when I was 20 years old, I had Bell's palsy and half of my face got paralyzed temporarily for 2 months. And that's really when I understood the power that stress can have, our internal emotions can have on our external body. And the stress I was having really was from all these mental health things and identity issues, self confidence, self love, as you mentioned, Charleston, and learning all of these tools through the world of coaching and reading self development books. I really learned how to embrace my uniqueness, embrace my skin color, embrace my culture and the beauty that it brings on a whole new level. And I feel that having these tools are so, so powerful in our journey to help us really step into our power and live our greatest life and live a life that's actually worth it and meaningful for us. Because that's the other thing with the comparison part of it, right? We maybe compare ourselves even to people who look like us or who are like us. And we think, oh, why are we not there? Why are we not doing X, Y, and Z? And that can really affect our confidence and our mental health. And I feel like being able to embrace your uniqueness and your own unique choices can be such a liberating and powerful experience. And similar to Dr. Amruti, after working through all this pain and trauma for myself, I was able to release 60 pounds off my body. And I truly believe it was the mental health work. It wasn't, eating carrots. Like I still eat a lot of the foods that I ate when I was overweight. So it's really the mental health work that transformed my insides. So I'm super excited to have this conversation today. Wendy is going to be moderating our panel. So I'm going to be passing it over to you, Wendy. Go for it.
All right, thank you so much, Aditi. So let's get started. We have a lot of great questions. Whether we get to them all or not, that's quite all right, because I want to hear the meat and the story behind you guys' experiences. So the first thing I want to delve into is, what kind of mental health struggles did you have to navigate as a person of color?
I can share. I think it's similar to what Aditi shared before. There is just a whole level of added pressure to be successful. And it is very cultural in our society because of all their experience. The generations before us had to struggle a lot to survive, to just barely survive. And there's a lot more emphasis on making sure you're secure. And for that, if you are successful, you make sure you have good degrees, you are highly educated, and you have a good stable job, and then you're married by a certain age, you have kids by a certain age. So there's almost like this cultural formula that's being created for a lot of people. And the challenge with that is that when it doesn't work for everybody. It's such a cookie cutter approach. It's such a cookie cutter perspective that it doesn't do justice to who we are at our core. And just a lot of expectation. There's a lot of expectation around, you don't have your answers, listen to your elders, and you can't talk back, you can't share how you feel, and there's really no space for emotions, for really the feeling, for the heart, because everybody's so caught up in just trying to fit in that box. And growing up, a lot of South Asian women, we are brought up with those beliefs that, yeah, if you do all these XYZ things, you will have this happy, successful life. And then you have the Bollywood expectation on it. Once you get married, once you kind of find your Prince Charming, it will all be okay. But it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. So for me personally, I did all of that, and I went to best schools, top schools. I had such successful career working in banking. I got married. I was expecting my first kid, and my life was perfect on paper. And then something just hit. Holy hell, like what is happening? Like why am I not happy? I did everything by the book. Why am I not happy now? That was my awakening. This is how my eyes opened up to all the places, all the ways I was disconnected from my feelings and my heart and my emotions. And that's when I realized that, okay, this is a lot of conditioning. It's really, there's no place for me personally to be there.
That's so good. Thank you so much, Shakti.
So I just kind of like going on a little bit from that, I had a very similar thing. In our culture, it's very like, you stick by the books. This is what you do. This is where you go to, and then this is where you do. And then, like, to all the outside world, I had the perfect life. I was a doctor. I was married. I had 2 lovely children. I've got a beautiful house. I've got my in-laws just down the road. I've got my parents just here. Like, it was the perfect life. And every day I still woke up with anxiety. Every day I still dreaded going into work. Every day I still kind of thought, well, there's something wrong here. But what I ended up doing is judging myself. I ended up thinking, no, stop being so silly. You're being ungrateful, get on with it and keep going. So that judgment was there because I didn't like, I thought that I was just creating it in my head. And like, despite being a doctor, despite being like, you know, knowing so much about this, I had so much compassion and empathy for all my patients. But for myself, there was none of that. And so that's why I used to eat to make myself feel better, because food was very reliable. It was very like, it would always make me feel better. I would always, you know, be able to get that dopamine hit from eating something. Even if I thought it was like good food, you know, get some nuts, it's okay, it's like on protocol. But like, I would always end up going to food to make me feel better. And then I just realized that actually, like, when I got exposed to like the coaching and stuff, I was like, no way, there's another way out there. Like, what? I don't need to go to food. It just opened up my eyes, and I was just like, hold on, like, what have I missed all my life? Like, it was so fun to realize that I can actually feel my own emotions and not actually go to like eat or watch the Netflix or kind of, you know, go and overshop and spend like my whole salary on things that I don't need, you know. And when I was actually able to be at one with my emotions, like, I just felt my emotion just the other day, and I felt like I had a mind-blowing moment, and I was like, how can people like not like be taught this, you know? And so like, it is so empowering to see it in yourself and to see it in your clients, and to see that they can break this taboo, break this kind of like this stigma of, we don't talk about our feelings, we don't go there, because that's very woo, and that's very like touchy feely, and feelings, really, that's what I used to think, and that's what a lot of my clients think too. But like, when we are able to break that, it's just so empowering. And like, often, like, as a person of color, as a doctor, I often saw patients who wouldn't ever come in and say, I'm feeling stressed or I'm feeling sad or anything. They would often come in with physical symptoms. I've got a headache, doc. I've got really bad tummy pain. And after we'd ruled out everything else, it was to do with their stress levels and them not processing emotion. So in people of color, it's very common to kind of experience very physical symptoms, because some people are not willing, because in our society it's kind of frowned upon. It's like, oh, it's kind of like you're lower if you experience any of these things. And in our culture, it's often like, oh, do you know that person? They've got this. And it's like frowned upon, and, you know, people will talk about it, and you'll be kind of like singled out. And so no one talks about it. There's so many people who suffer, but we don't talk about it. So like, the aim of today's summit is to kind of just bring a bit of awareness and be like, it's okay to talk about this. There's so many tools, and it's so common. And hopefully we can decrease some of that stigma with regards to mental health and people of color.
I thank you guys for sharing. And, you know, a couple common themes, of course, are what you're supposed to do and what you're not supposed to do. And for me, there was so much of that growing up. I'm Black and Korean. And so there's just certain expectations, but as a child, you don't know where to fit in. So just where I was growing up, it was the idea of got to be a man, got to be tough, got to be this, got to be that. And it's funny for me because I've always been that guy that was told like I'm the sensitive one, and I used to believe I was too sensitive, but including the word "too" has to involve a situation. For example, you might be too sensitive for this, or you know, you're too weak for that. But looking at me as a person, I'm not too sensitive. I'm just sensitive. And then when I heard the word empath, I said, oh, so there's a word for me being able to feel what you feel, and that's okay. And that is not something that we're going to discuss as Black men. How many of you have a list of Black men that you would say are empaths? Right? So, and so going back to even talking about judging yourself, it's where do I fit in? And it reminds me of a saying that Brene Brown says, fitting in is the opposite of belonging, because when you feel like you belong, you're not trying to fit in. And for me, this continued in the military because each generation in the military is more diverse than the last. But you bring those things with you. For example, the expectation that Black women are going to be angry, So then as a Black woman, trying to not show your anger, even though your anger is valid. It's those kinds of things. And so it's like, what do I not do? You're trying to avoid fitting into a stereotype. And that really impacts all cultures, where not only am I trying to actually, step into my power and live my life, I'm also trying to not be what you think I am based on your stereotypes of me. And if you match those stereotypes, it's a whole different challenge. Someone says, well, oh, you're Indian, you're supposed to be smart. And then you think, well, yeah, I do have a master's or a PhD, and now you're conflicted. And so it's a big part of knowing what to do and what you're not supposed to do as part of your culture and the stereotypes, and evolving from that to really just be true to yourself regardless of other people's stereotypes. And that's the challenge.
This is such a powerful conversation. I'm loving everything I'm hearing and I'm relating to so much of it. And to add to the conversation, definitely some of the stuff that I had mentioned earlier, but definitely also like what you should be doing, how you should be living your life, all of those kind of cultural expectations. And also, your body type should be this way, so you can be married off. You should be able to cook, you should have kids. I mean, the list goes on. For a while I was really like, I feel like my only value as a woman is to be skinny and be married and bear children. But what if I'm not any of those? Then what? You know what I mean? I've struggled with my weight. I'm not interested in marriage and I don't want to have kids. So I'm like, oh, am I just going to be rejected for the rest of my life? You know what I mean? So I definitely have struggled with that. And it's funny because I was in that whole fantasy world too, of the prince arriving and this and that for a while. But when my life wasn't lining up in that box, I was like, it made me question everything about my worthiness and the constant comments from, and I feel like at least in the Indian culture, there's a lot of people who have no filter and are really rude. I remember visiting India and somebody was like, do they not, I thought they have diets in America. And I was like, wow, in front of people. A family member had said, like, oh, are you sure you want to eat that? Like, I think you're good. You've had enough. Comments about marriage, so rude and just like in your face, like, oh, you should get married. Oh, and then when I lost the 60 pounds, it was like, oh, good, you lost weight finally. Now get married. And I was just like, and it just really, really crushed my spirit. That's like, this is my only value. And at some point I had to realize it's okay that this is what they think is what is should happen in life. It doesn't mean that my life is wrong. It doesn't mean that anything is wrong with me. It's okay for me to have a different lifestyle and different opinions. But for a long time, I really took all of their words and all their comments as truth. And I think that that's what made it so much more painful. When you really believe that you are less than because you don't look a certain way. And then also like skin color, there's things in the Indian culture too that, oh, don't go in the sun and get too tan, and they have this Fair and Lovely cream. And things like that. And so even within the culture, there's skin discrimination and things like that. It's very fascinating. And, when you experience these kind of things, it can really affect your mental health. And that's why I'm so passionate about mental health work, because I truly believe that these kind of tools that we'll be talking about can be so helpful in your journey. You no longer have to be struggling because of your differences. In fact, you can actually thrive. So those are a few of the experiences that I have experienced in terms of the cultural stuff.
So thank you everyone for your responses, and I want to thank the I'm thankful for the questions that have been submitted so far. So I want to actually dive into those questions. So the first one is, has anyone experienced as a person of color the lack of resources and supportive services that other demographics are more privileged to?
Yeah, well, I can answer that, really not so much for myself, but people that I know of. And a lot of that comes from the stereotypes. For example, my sister-in-law just had a baby, I think maybe 2 months ago. And just the idea is that she can handle it. And so you look at people, just her being, she's Haitian. And so just the idea of people of a certain culture, certain skin color have more pain tolerance or more of an ability to handle it or get over it. And so you just assume they don't need it. And so a lot of times these people don't even realize that it's an implicit bias that they're using to impact the care that they offer. And the same thing goes with men in therapy. The idea that maybe you go to someone in your leadership chain and you're stressing out about something, and one thing that you hate to hear when you are stressed out is to man up. But the idea of manning up is a barrier to care. And then you think, you know, will they think I'm less of a man if I ask for help? And so, yeah, I've seen it a lot where it's not even an attempt to be harmful. It's just people have these stereotypes and these beliefs of other people based on their skin color or body type. And so they allow that to impact their medical decisions for treatment. And it's very harmful. And the statistics show that globally.
In my personal experience, I haven't really seen as much of lack of availability of resources, but I have seen a lot of resistance to vulnerability. And it is very culturally expected that if you are not feeling well, you have to basically lock yourself in a room and work through it. And everybody will do their best. The family will do their best to hide, that you're going through something. So there's a lot of stigma around it. There's a lot of judgment around it. And the last thing that you want to do is to have your own battles and then deal with a lot of the family pressure, cultural pressure. And it is very, very common. I have heard it like way too many times. If I say, share with somebody that I am just feeling low, I'm feeling down, the first thing that they say is, well, you have no reason to feel low and down. You shouldn't feel this way. And that is like, okay, I can deal with what I need to process by myself without having to go through this grueling process of finding somebody else to tell me that same thing.
I think also it's kind of often as a child, people around me get told that you need to go and grab everything you can because you're not going to be, you're an Indian girl. So you need to go out and, you're competing with other people out there who are like, who are not the same color as you. And so my parents specifically didn't say that, but there was kind of like in the culture, it was very much like you need to go out and kind of stand out because you're already lower than others. So you need to go and like exceed your own kind of what you normally would do to kind of do that. And like now that I've become a coach as well, it was very much like, what are you going to do being a coach? Like people, especially of like, people of color, because it's like, well, we don't talk about this kind of stuff. So you're not going to like, a lot of people have told me, you're not going to earn any money coaching Indians. Like, what? Like Indians aren't going to pay for this. Like, and so then I'm kind of like, well, no, but this is why I want to be a coach for South Asian women professionals, because these are the people who could actually benefit from this. And these are the people who are kind of hiding in their homes at home and kind of just buckling up and kind of thinking there's something wrong with me, but I'm just going to keep going because everyone around me keeps telling me that. So the access to the resources are there, but it's the not being willing to access them because of the stigma from all of that. And what if someone finds out? A lot of my patients used to say to me, doctor, I know you know my mum, but please don't tell her. And I'm like, guys, this is confidential. Even like coaching sessions, they're like, I know you, but please don't tell anyone that I'm getting this. And it's very much like breaking down that barrier that actually it's okay to seek help. In fact, that's not a sign of weakness. That is a sign of strength. That shows that you are willing to actually accept that there's something that you would like help with. And it's not a weakness at all, but definitely a sign of strength.
I had some similar things where I was told that too. You need to be more like them, like the American people, the people who are more outspoken and outgoing. You'll be more successful if you're that way. Again, rejecting the who you are and, you know, what you bring to the table, but you need to be more like these people if you want to be successful. So definitely that. And the stigma, to piggyback on everything you guys are saying, yeah, like there was somebody who, because I know, I really struggle to share my weight loss journey because people always want to know what I'm eating. They're all up in my plate. I'm like, look, y'all need to get out of my plate and mind your own business because this is not a session. Leave me alone. You know, like when I would go home, everybody would be like seeing what I'm eating. And I thought you're not eating bread. Why are you eating bread? I'm like, look, it's not about the bread, y'all. It's about the inner work. And like I would struggle. I still struggle talking about it because I'm like, it's such a inner whole wellness journey. It's not like what you're like, sure, that's part of it, but it's a small fraction. And people just can't wrap their head around that fact. And I know we're here to kind of break that barrier. But yeah, there was somebody who is struggling with their weight, and I know they have a lot of childhood trauma. And I had brought it up and I was like, do you think, you know, this person would be open to going to therapy or something? Oh no. No, why, you know, but she doesn't think about her childhood anymore. And I'm like, it doesn't matter if you're not consciously thinking about it. It's trapped in your body and it's showing up in other ways. And exactly, it's like just not having that openness. And I think now it's really time to start shifting that conversation, that there's nothing wrong with you. Like everybody could work on their mental health. It's not for sick people. You know, I use this kind of metric with the mental health. It's like you could be kind of under the ground, and that's when you're really struggling and you just want to get to standing on the ground. You just want to get to a place of okay. Then there's a place of going from okay to good, and then good to great. And there's different levels to it. And I think we think, and a lot of like the cultural things is, it's kind of like you're under the ground, you're struggling. That's only when you go. And if you go, like Amruti was saying, oh, everyone's talking about it, you know. So I think it's also our job to, because, you know, I'm guilty of it too, where sometimes I just shut my mouth because I'm like, I don't even want to get into this conversation. I don't have energy and time for it. And sometimes we don't, but when you do and you are willing to step in, be like, hey, you know, let's honor what this person is going through. We all go through stuff and it's okay to ask for help. But I think these conversations can really help kind of normalize that. And for us to know ourselves and anyone watching, like, it's safe for me to be struggling right now, and it's safe for me to be okay, but want to be better than okay. It's safe for me to be good, but want to be better than good. It's not only when you're really struggling.
That's really good insight from everyone. And that actually leads me into my next question, which is how can people who haven't had the awakenings or the realizations that we have had, how can they navigate the stigma around mental health?
All my answers came from my spiritual awakening, so I will bring on that perspective. But just in yogic tradition, we learned that there are 72,000 nadis in our body, and these are the channels in our body that carry energy and regulate energy in our body. And when we struggle, when we go into a deep of a battle with mental health, I always realize that there is blockages that come up in the channels so that their natural energy doesn't flow freely in the body. And when the energy flows freely in the body, what happens is that our body has innate ability to balance itself out. We can struggle, things can come up for us to feel, and we feel it and it releases. But because of belief system and programming and a lot of the samskaras, as they say in yogic tradition, which is a lot of these old memories that we don't know where they're coming from, but they're part of our body, sometimes these blockages come up. So if you look at it, we all have the right energies in our body that run naturally. Our bodies are created to create things. We create life. Men create life. Women create life. And a lot of times, most times, what happens when we are in these mental health battles, we get cut off from the creativeness in our body. So my particularly very specific formula for helping people navigate is remind them who they are. And that's when the intuition really helps. When this opens up, we actually see all this information. Our mind can actually anchor on, because we are seeing it. When we close our eyes, we see who we are. We see what is our true nature, our prakriti, and we see what works for us and what doesn't work for us. And once we are pivoted to that information, once this like creativity opens up, when we are back to creating things for ourselves, whether it's our new job, whether it's promotion, whether it's making a baby, whether it's getting married, finding that soulmate, whatever that next thing in your life is, it really helps us clear a lot of the blockages out and really help us move forward in that creative, empowered way.
I think reducing the stigma really starts with us and ourselves. Can you accept? Where can we come into self acceptance about where we are? And once we can accept where we are and what we're going through, it really changes the game. When you can own your struggles or own just where you are right now, even if it's not necessarily a struggle, I notice that completely shifts it. It's because if they have shame around it and we have shame around it, it just creates a big bubble of shame that can make it really hard to navigate. So if you can start with self-acceptance for yourself, I think that makes it really, really powerful, because then over time, people can say what they want and you'll be able to have built that inner foundation when you're kind of like, all right, I understand where you're coming from, but this is where I'm coming from. And that can really shift it.
Something that really helped me was understanding about the 50-50 concept of emotions. So knowing that actually 50%, in our human experience, 50% is meant to be positive and 50% is meant to be negative. And because most of us don't think that the goal of life is actually to be happy all the time, then we're using a lot of false pleasures and things to try and actually get us to the happy. And so when I actually understood that, okay, I'm not actually meant to be happy all the time, I'm not meant to be positive all the time, then that actually reduced some of that kind of like pressure. And so if kind of like everyone was to kind of appreciate that actually the role of our existence is not actually to be happy all the time, and it's to kind of live that authentic human experience of 50% positive and 50% negative, then just that awareness and that kind of like acceptance of that really helps reduce some of that I'm not good enough, or there's something wrong with me because I'm not feeling like this, or kind of like, I'm flawed in some way, or I'm broken, right? And so that really helped me to kind of help navigate and be like, okay, this is normal, this is okay. Anxiety every morning is kind of like part of it. Doesn't make me any less than anyone else. It doesn't make me, just makes me me. And when I was able to accept that and be on board with it, it was kind of like, okay, I can actually stop that judgment and drop that like the layers of emotion that we lay on top, which then makes it really hard to get to the underlying emotion. So that really helped me.
When I think about people breaking through the stigma and reaching out to get help, a lot of it is, do I deserve to get help? Meaning my value as a person as well as what I'm going through. And I saw a lot of this in the military. Being in the Air Force, there's so many people in the Air Force that don't go through the same things that they hear about from the other services, right? So you think that because I'm working on a computer, and someone else is actually being shot at or something, I don't deserve to go get help for my trauma. I don't deserve this and that. And there's so much self-judgment in that. For example, when you talk about being an Indian woman and you think, okay, because I have these degrees in this house and this husband, I don't deserve to go get help. And so you judge yourself. And for me, one of the primary ways to get out of judging yourself is aligning your values, thoughts, intentions, and behavior. So when I think, do I deserve this? Do I deserve that? Should I get help? Am I the kind of person that deserves help? Sometimes that's a day-to-day process. So I can't just give myself a score. On a 1 to 10, I'm always an 8.5 or a 2.5. It's today, loyalty as a value of mine is something that I practiced. Love as a value of mine is something that was evident in my behavior. So if I lived my values today, am I not worthy of whatever I want, whether it's to speak to a therapist or go get an ice cream cone, whatever it is, it's elevating our sense of self. And when we talk about things like accepting ourselves, accepting our flaws and all, it's yes, I'm imperfect. However, today I lived my values. And then I look at the optimism, right? I bring optimism to everything. So if today I did not live my values, I can do better tomorrow. And my effort and my recognition of that is part of my self acceptance and self awareness. And so as you're growing and changing every day, acknowledge those things about yourself every day, your thoughts, your values, your actions, your behaviors. And if they're in alignment, then can't you be proud of living your values today?
Very good. Very good. Excuse me. I have some troubles with my throat today. But I wanted to throw out one last user submitted question. And that's with navigating resources and tools. A lot of people of color become drug addicted, they become homeless. So how can these resources and tools become more accessible, especially for people of color who really suffer at a rapid rate, but seem to have no resources or services available?
I think honestly, part of it is we have to seek it because there's so much out there. There's so much information. And I just feel like it also goes back to other types of things in terms of where we want the answer to come to us. But I think at some point when the pain is so deep, you start to go looking for it. So I really think that we have to take that initiative to go look for it. And, as mental health professionals and people in this field, I feel like it's also our job to put the information out there so people can access it. But I think that there definitely has to be kind of like a mutual, coming together of it, because there's many times I wanted resources to come to me. I wanted to feel better, but I just stayed in anger and bitterness. And, there were resources available, but I just felt kind of stuck and I didn't really look for it. But when I really hit rock bottom, it was like, look, if I'm going to stay on this earth, I need to make this experience better because I'm not staying otherwise. You know what I mean? And sometimes it does come to that point where you're at your last wits and you're like, something's got to give, something's got to change, and I'm going to look for it. If I don't find it from looking, then we'll figure something out. But I really think that we do have to seek it.
When I look at this energetically, it is a permission slip. So if we are at point A and if we have to get to point B, how ready do I feel like this point B is a possibility for me? And it doesn't feel like a possibility to everybody. The timing is everything. And when the timing is aligned, like the one thing that I've learned so far is timing is everything. This transformation, any transformation, cannot be pushed or forced on people. The community, even people around that person, cannot say, okay, you should do this, you should do this, because it just goes so far. The person who is going through a challenging time, how ready are they to really break through? How ready are they to see that point B as a possibility for them? And that is the big piece of, when the transformation and how it will unfold. The other thing is that I feel like there are many resources out there. If you look at YouTube, there's a lot of people talking about these. I mean, this conference, this summit is also an example of kind of free resources that we can tap into. I feel like the more we talk about our personal stories, the more we open up and the more we show people, yes, this is where I was. I was at point A at some point too, just like you. And point B became a possibility for me because I did XYZ. The more we share these stories of success, I think that is going to help people break through and have the hope that they can have point B for themselves. Because part of the mental health, part of the depression, part of the stagnation in the energy we feel, the first thing happens is we are brought down and we think this is it, this is the end, this is how it's going to be. I better make peace with where I am right now, that there is no good, better, or even best version of me out there. This is where I need to settle. So I think just having these conversations is going to be helpful. I know personally, I know myself and so many professionals who do by donation type work, who do complementary work. So if anybody hearing us talk, answering these questions, please know that if somebody is going through challenges financially and they don't have the means and resources to go through like traditional therapy and go to doctors, just know that there are many professionals who can and who will be willing to offer kind of by donation type arrangements so that you can have access to mental health whenever you are ready for it.
When we're talking about a lack of access to resources, as minorities, and I think about some of our low income communities, a couple of things that come to mind for me, first of all, are that misery is going to show itself one way or another, right? Whether it's from suicide to alcoholism to child abuse and neglect, misery will show itself. Maybe for this one person, it's isolation, and the next person, it's going downtown getting in fights. And so we have to find help. And when we don't, and the misery shows itself, I will say examples of that are the fact that I believe over 80% of people who are addicted to drugs have experienced real trauma. And over 80% of women who are in prison in America have experienced domestic violence. So the misery will show itself. So obviously the need to access those resources before the misery manifests without your permission. And the way to do that is vulnerability. And we don't want to hear that. But when we hear that we need to have these conversations, we need to share the wins and the losses. You have to overcome the fear of being judged. You and your friends are tough. We hung out, we got in fights together, we went to the club together, we did all these things together. Well, now be vulnerable and say to that friend, I need help. And that friend can say to you, man, I felt the same way, and this is the resource that I use. You have to be vulnerable. You have to open yourself up to admit to those people that you need help. And so access to resources in poor communities among minorities happens one conversation at a time. You know what? I have no idea what you're talking about, but my cousin said something to me similar 3 weeks ago. Let me ask my cousin. And we have to build that way. And we look at vulnerability like it's a weakness, but it's really not. It takes bravery to open up and share, man, I'm going through this. And everyone that loves you, everyone that cares about you would rather you open up to them so that they can help you get help. And understand that first conversation, they might laugh at you because for 20 years we've been laughing at each other. But their love for you was real, and your vulnerability to open yourself up to asking for help is how you get there. And the first 7 people you ask might have no idea. But one of them a week later figures something out and calls you back. When you think that there's a total lack of resources, you have to find them one relationship and one conversation at a time. And as we become more vulnerable and open ourselves up, then we make these resources available to our whole community because we tell each other. We let each other know, I suffered too, and this is what I did. And here's the phone number. That's it. One conversation, one relationship. Be vulnerable, get over your fears, get over your self judgment, get over your fear of being judged by others. Because if you don't do that, what are the alternatives? Misery is going to show itself. So own your misery and bring it to your relationships with vulnerability and get the help you need. It's not easy, but you're worth it.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. So powerful, everyone. Love these conversations today. Definitely want to continue these kind of conversations. So if you have more ideas and topics or questions that you want to bring into panels like this, we definitely want to continue these. I'm going to be hosting more self-care summits. So the conversation is just getting started. So as we're wrapping up, I would love for everybody to just share one quick line with, again, who they are, who they help, where can people find you, and then we're going to wrap up with closing statements. So Shakti, let's start with you.
Hi, I'm Shakti, and I work mainly with women, helping them bring in big transformations for their life and really help them feel empowered, activate their intuitiveness, really understand who are they, why are they on the planet, what is their purpose, and to be able to manage stress, to understand what is behind the stress, why is it coming up, what is behind any challenge that they're navigating through, what is their spirit really learning, what is their spirit really wanting to feel empowered, in which way are they looking to feel empowered. And you can find me at awakenshakti.net. I look forward to hearing from you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Amriti Chaudhary. I am a life and weight loss coach for South Asian women professionals. I help South Asian women professionals lose weight off their bodies by getting rid of their mental weight. So I do it without exercise, without supplements, and none of that. It's literally just eating real foods, teaching you the tools to manage your mind so that you can get rid of that mental weight. And I know that it's such a taboo to be talking about mental health in this community. So I aim to talk about it in a real, relatable way and help know that we're all going through this together and that I can help you with that. So you can find me at on Instagram, on Facebook, and at www.amriticoaching.com. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Charleston Gaines again, and I empower people to love themselves and feel whole again. And I do this by applying emotional intelligence to whatever you're going through, whether it's self doubt, guilt, shame, insecurity, depression, anxiety, dealing with trauma. Because really, emotional intelligence is the foundation of you really building the life that you desire and that you deserve. And one thing that I'm doing is starting on Monday, I'm holding a free 5-day Maximize Your Life challenge. And what we're really doing is learning the skills and the tools of emotional intelligence and resilience, as well as the underlying foundational neuroscience, just to help you maximize your life. And so, if you want to know more about that, you can go to maximizeyourlifechallenge.com. There you can sign up, and we're going to have a good time. And it's 90 minutes of just group conversation every day, plus workbook, homework, and really, really learning yourself so that you can build yourself instead of waiting for other people. Thank you.
Once again, hello everyone. My name is Wendy Coop, and I am a coach for type 2 diabetics, where I help them lower their A1C using plant-based nutrition. And that has been what has helped me get my numbers under control. So I like to pay that forward to help other people do the same thing. I have an inaugural group coaching cohort that starts on July 1st, and you can find more about that at type2groupcoaching.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you, Wendy, for moderating today. I know you were struggling with your throat, so appreciate you for being a warrior. Again, my name is Aditi. I am a life coach and emotional wellness speaker. I help you turn your stress habits into self-care habits. And my book is launching tomorrow for pre-order, all about learning self-care habits that you can use in your life to transform your stress and flourish, and really to live a life that's worth it for you. That, at the end of the day, is what it's all about. I'm passionate about helping you reduce emotional suffering in your life. You can sign up for my book wait list. I'm going to be having early bird bonuses for people who are on the wait list at aditicreative.com/book launch. And thank you so much for being here with us. This is the end of our 3-day self-care summit. I wasn't sure what the next topic was going to be, but I got the download yesterday when I went to visit the ocean. We're going to be talking about shadow work. So, really digging deeper and healing those inner wounds, healing the parts of you that are hurting, that are struggling. So, if you are a speaker and if you want to be on the topics for doing shadow work, send me a message. And again, you can sign up for the recordings and for future self-care summits at aditicreative.com/summit. Thank you everyone so much for being here. And thank you to all the speakers. Thank you to everyone who's here live. And thank you for the great questions today. And thank you to everyone who is watching the recording. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.